I welcome the outcome of the rail review study, and I particularly welcome the outcome as it pertains to the recommendations it makes for my own constituency and for the West in general. And I know the Minister is very familiar with this, particularly the doubling of the rail track to Athenry and the proposed reopening of the Western Rail Corridor. However, I go back to the publication of the National Planning Framework just about a month or 5 or 6 weeks ago. And in the National Planning Framework, for each of the regional cities of Cork, Limerick and Waterford, and Galway, there were a number of key enablers outlined as to how we can see these cities developed and what infrastructure projects will be required to see these cities develop. And for Limerick, Cork and Waterford, the key enablers all included some reference to rail transport or rail projects. However, there was no reference in the National Planning Framework to reopening the Western Rail Corridor or to doubling the rail track between Galway and Athenry as part of the key enablers for Galway City. I think that was regretful, given the strong sense that came from this report, this review of the All-Ireland Strategic Rail Review, to include both projects into the future. And again, I do sense, and I hear other deputies sensing the same for their own constituencies, but when you compare Galway with Cork, Cork has a double track, I believe, to Mallow, a double track to Cove. In Limerick, they have started the work on progressing a double track between Limerick and Limerick Junction. Yet, I don't see the same intent arising from this report, and I put down a number of questions, parliamentary questions, as to how we are going to move from this report towards the implementation of both of those objectives in terms of doubling the track to Athenry and reopening the Western Rail Corridor. And I'm finding it difficult to see real intent and to say purposely and specifically this project is going to progress. And as I said at the time of the publication of the National Rail Review, I hope that the National Development Plan reviews that in terms of rail infrastructure for Galway and clearly highlights that both the doubling the track to Athenry and the Western Rail Corridor are part of the National Development Plan. I do think it is worth reminding ourselves of the recent, and it was mentioned earlier in the Dáil today, the recent cost of congestion report in Galway City, which showed that the cost of congestion in Galway City is going to double between now and 2030, and it's going to reach a level of €1.7 million. And clearly, that report is saying we need to do more in terms of infrastructure development to tackle congestion in Galway City. I think these two moves that are included in this report will go some way towards reducing the congestion in Galway City and reducing the costs associated with that. There are just one or two operational matters regarding rail services in the city I want to draw people's attention to as well. There is a very positive project at the moment in terms of the redevelopment of Ceannt Station, but Ceannt Station will now have 5 platforms, and yet we will only have a single track into the station. And it's going to be very difficult, I think, to make the most of the redevelopment of Ceannt Station without doubling the rail track to Athenry. So I think that should be borne in mind. I do recognise and welcome that there is the project to develop a second platform in Oranmore and a passing loop. I welcome that. I believe that's a start. But I would like to see greater intent as to how we're going to progress the recommendations in this study as they relate to Galway and rail infrastructure in Galway. One other operational matter I might mention is I understand that Galway County Council are soon to progress the enhancement of the Oranmore the car park at the Oranmore rail station, which will make it more amenable for people who want to use the station there to park and ride between Oranmore and Galway City. And I'd ask Irish Rail specifically to look at the car park they have in Athenry and to do something similar. Open it up for the public to use, reduce the cost of using it and increase the flow of people from Athenry and Galway using rail.